Well, welcome back. This is Citizen FM 93.7, and you are listening to the Super Citizen at Sunrise. The time is 7:11, today, the 8th of December, 2022. Now, what has been happening? What are some of the stories that have been making the headlines? This and other things are what we'll be discussing over the course of the next 1 hour. So before we do any of that, first of all, let me cover some of the stories, some of the headlines that we will be having details for throughout the course of this morning. Well, from the Punch, we have this headlines. Polls. INEC knocks Tinubu over comment on e-transmission. The Premium Times leads with this headline, Why We Threatened Over 100 MDAs. This is according to a senator. NNPC, how we raised crude oil production from 900,000 barrels per day to 1.6 million barrels a day. This is a headline in this day. And Daily Trust has this headline, FCTA empowers 19,850 youths. Well, we'll go on to the first story that we have today, and that story is coming from the Punch newspaper. And the story goes, the headline goes like this. Polls INEC knocks Tinubu over comments on e-transmission. Well, there's been a lot that has been said about this e-transmission, but it seems that we're still there. We're still talking about it. Here are the details of this story. The Independent National Electoral Commission has knocked the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Party, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, for expressing doubts over the credibility of the bimodal voter accreditation system, that is the BVAS, and results viewing portal, which would be deployed for the 2023 general elections. Now, the commission expressed shock that the APC candidate could question the efficiency of the technology, which had been used in several polls, including the off-season governorship elections in Ekiti, Osun, and Anambra states. Now, the former Lagos State governor had on Monday at the Chatham House in London, United Kingdom, said that the electoral body had yet to assure Nigerians of the workability of the BVAS and the e-transmission of poll results. So he spoke weeks after the APC national chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, and the National Organizing Secretary, Suleiman Argungu, expressed concerns over the planned deployment of BVAS for next year's general election. Now, speaking at Chatham House, Tinubu said, and I quote, we are still building confidence on our democratic and voting system. INEC is yet to assure us that during this election, that electronic transmission, the technology being used for accreditation, and the total vote count is reliable, dependable, and assuring in our democratic process before we introduce a complicated element of ballot counting. But end quote. However, responding to these uncertainties that were expressed by the APC candidate, the chief press secretary to the chairman of INEC, Mr. Rotimi Oyekanmi, pointed out that the commission has been talking about the features and the strengths and advantages of BVAS since 2020. Now, he spoke in response to the inquiries by the Punch newspaper regarding the APC standard bearer's comments on the credibility of BVAS and the e-transmission of results. Now, yes, of course, it has been rather curious when you look at the comments that have been made by top personalities from the All Progressives Congress. And don't forget that the APC is the governing party. And so the chairman, expressed some doubt. Now the presidential candidate is expressing some doubts of his own as to the confidence invested in this, the e-transmission. And it was a big struggle for Nigeria to even get these e-transmission, the e-transmission codified into law in our most recent electoral act. Remember, we almost even lost the opportunity over the question of whether or not political parties should have direct primaries. You know, when the Electoral Act was being debated, you know, there was this infighting between members of the National Assembly and their respective state governors. And, you know, a lot of political watchers and analysts believe that there was an attempt by those who were in the National Assembly to seize power to dictate and determine the outcome of primaries through the Electoral Act, which would make direct primaries the only way that a candidate can actually evolve in political parties. So there was a big debate about that, and I think we almost lost the opportunity to have e-transmission. And then remember, even throughout that, there was the question as to whether Nigeria had 4G or whether it had 2G. We had the NCC coming out with its position. So we've hurdled all of those. We've gone over all of those challenges. And now we have top politicians who are expressing doubt. But sometimes the interesting thing is that it takes top politicians' comment to solidify or dissipate democracy. Top politicians and their comments and their confidence either erodes confidence in democracy or reinforces it. Now, if top politicians are expressing doubts on INEC, then it erodes our democracy. Especially when you consider that we have a bigger problem within political parties than we do with INEC. I think if you go back to the 2003 elections, which a lot of people believe was among our worst, and you look at the state of INEC at the time, and you look at everything that INEC has done and achieved and responded to, INEC has responded to changes over every election. So INEC is an organization that is operating in a very hostile environment. Now, how do you rate the performance of INEC? Do you think that INEC has performed impressively? Well, I think my verdict is that INEC has, considering all the circumstances, actually done quite well. I don't think that there is anything that INEC has gotten wrong that is too far from what any other electoral organization would have gotten wrong under the hostile circumstances that they're operating. But when you consider the size of the challenges that they're facing, from arson to, bad faith political actors, to thugs, vote buying, and all of that. This is the climate. So does INEC need these doubts actually, being brought up again and again and again? These are questions. I would love to hear your take on it. Do you think that Nigeria is not ready for all of this? Do you think that the BVAS and all of that is going to prove problematic? Are you skeptical, like the APC client and candidate, the APC candidate, as to, still adjusting as to whether INEC can do this? I'd love to hear about that a little bit later on when we open up the lines. But we move on to our next story. This one coming from Premium Times. The headline reads, "Why We Threatened Over 100 MDAs." This is according to a senator. Which senator? I'll tell you in a moment. Here are the details. The Senate yesterday threatened to cut down 2023 budgetary allocations of over 100 ministries, departments, and agencies, also called MDAs. Now, the indicated MDAs were threatened for repeatedly failing to appear before the Senate Public Accounts Committee to respond to queries raised in the Auditor General's report and the allocation of service-wide votes. Now, the report has indicated some MDAs for queries like the frivolous spendings, misappropriation of funds, inability to account for money spent, and the payment of salaries to dead or retired staff, amongst others. So we not only have ghost workers, we now have payments being made to dead staff, to retired staff, and others. Now, while for the service-wide votes, some MDAs had collected funds from the SWV, and failed to account for it and how it was dispersed or utilized. The threat was sequel to a point of order which was raised by Edo South Senator Matthew Irogide, is the chairperson of the committee, who complained of the MDA's nonchalant attitude. Now, briefing journalists just after plenary, Mr. Orogide actually said that the committee decided to compile the names of the indicted MDAs because they have cultivated the culture of not to them. So he explains how the panel sent about 3 letters of invitation, including reminders, just to give them the opportunities to defend themselves. And he said that the panel also relaxed the protocol and asked that officers of competence from the MDAs appear before the committee if their heads are unavailable. So part of the complaints are, he said that they spend the money but don't want to account for it. So we are compiling the 2015 audit report, but it's not complete because of the blatant refusal of these agencies to appear. So that's a question of transparency and accountability in government rearing its ugly head once again. Now, what does the Senate do? These are questions. But the ball is in the Senate's court. They have the power to decide how to handle all of this. And some people would also question whether the Senate would have the character to do this, or whether they will come to some sort of settlement. But it's certain that this kind of behavior needs to stop, and the Senate needs to put its foot down. The House of Representatives needs to do same, and have more transparency. How do we have more transparency in our civil service? How do we do that? Every year, it's almost the same complaints. If it's not this, then it's a question of budget padding, or a question of repeated line items within the budget, or there have been allegations that, maybe that there's a lot of collusion going on with, between the those who are trying to get the budget passed and those who should be, carrying out these oversights. But whatever it is, it's certainly clear that it's become a problem, and senators are very concerned about this. Okay, I'll take one more story before we open up the lines. This one says, it's published in This Day newspaper, and it says that NNPC, how we raised crude oil production from 900,000 barrels per day to 1.6 million barrels a day. I'm taking this story essentially because we will be talking about oil in more detail a little bit later on the show. So what is the NNPC saying? And the NNPC is a corporation that, Nigerians have struggled with for so long. But the Nigeria National Petroleum Company, yesterday, or Company Limited, as it is known right now, because it's a player in the industry fully right now. Well, yesterday, it reaffirmed that with the return of the Forcados and partial restoration of the Trans-Niger pipeline, that's the TNP, Nigeria's oil production had hit 1.6 million barrels per day. So we're now doing, according to NNPC, 1.6 million barrels a day. NNPC explained how the National Oil Company was able to ramp up crude oil production, which had fallen significantly, with the collaboration of security agents or security agencies, with collaboration of regulators, oil-producing communities, and other stakeholders. Now, speaking on Arise News channel, this day's broadcast arm, Chief Upstream Investment Officer of the NNPC Upstream Investment Management Services, Bala Wunti, also clarified the much-reported 700,000 barrels per day losses incurred by the national oil firm. Now, he explained that based on all of the calculations, Nigeria was actually losing on the average. Nigeria was losing on the average over 700,000 barrels per day. So he explained that in hydrocarbons accounting, the figure, including engineering losses, oil theft, as well as what could have been produced due to shutdowns, which he described as opportunity losses. Now, before the recent recovery, he said that Nigeria was losing about 21 million barrels per month and up to 1.9 billion every 30 days. So, according to him, if you take an average oil price of $90, that will translate into somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.9 billion in losses that we've suffered. So he said that at least 68 vessels have been impounded since the renewed fight against oil theft, and that some of the culprits are being prosecuted and by the appropriate authorities. And he said collaboration between security agents, local communities, contractors, and NNPC have led to the return of Forcados, and while the Brass and Bonny, which were shut down due to force majeure, were expected to begin operations soon. So he's pointed out that while the Trans-Niger pipeline was yet to fully return, it had now been partially restored, leading to an increase in reported production figures. Okay, well, that's what the NNPC is saying. Yeah, I will give my thoughts on that, but I would also like to hear from Abuja what they think about this and other headlines.
It has just begun.
Check it out.
Rescan your dial.
You found it.
You found it.
Citizen 93.7 FM. Abuja. We are the best.
To 93.7 Citizen FM, based in Nigeria's capital.
Your number one radio station.
Well, this is Citizen FM 93.7, and you are listening to the Super Citizen at Sunrise. My name is Stanley Bentu. The time is 7:27. Well, before I took that short break, we were talking about oil theft and how the NNPC is saying that our oil production has been ramped up. Investigations have led to certain arrests of persons involved in oil theft. But I'm wondering about who these persons are, because when you look at the scale and the technology that has been deployed, the sheer infrastructure that was deployed for oil to be stolen from Nigeria, you know that it's not about the little guy. Usually it's the little guy who gets arrested. For me, it's about the big shots. Are we getting all the way to the big fish? In other countries, some countries more developed than ours, they go even as far as when they arrest the little guy, they extract information from them and even strike deals with them to the point of even letting them go and forgiving them of their crimes if they're to play a critical part in getting up to the big guy. But over here in Nigeria, whenever there is any kind of big reveal or blow up, it's the little guys, the expendables. They are the ones who eventually get arrested to show that the government or the people, that something is being done. But do we actually have that desire to go up against the big guy? And whenever we do go up against the big guy, there's major drama. It's either they're in the courtrooms. That's when we're lucky enough to get as far as the courtrooms. It's either they are showing up with neck braces and all of that. Not to say that they're not sick, but it is rather convenient, if you ask me. They do appear that way. Or, it's some sort of siege that lasts for hours, or the court cases, hardly go anywhere. So it's very difficult to go up against the big guy here in Nigeria. But what do you think? I would like to hear from you. The lines are open and will remain open until the top of the hour. We're at the bottom of the hour now. So please give me a call on 0903 22 29 797 or 0808 22 22 037. We have a caller. Good morning.
Good morning, Stanley.
Yeah, great to hear from you.
Massman calling from Abu.
Okay, Massman, thank you for joining me. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I think I disagree and at the same time agree with the presidential aspirant of the APC concerning our election. About beavers, I think so far so good. The few elections that the INEC has conducted, the beavers are successful. So I think we should encourage them to improve on it. We cannot condemn INEC there. But where I agree with him is when he says our elections are not trusted. Yes, and the fault is ours. Who are the people buying thugs, recruiting thugs? The same Nigerians. Who are the thugs that are terrorizing our election? The same Nigeria. So, and then selling and buying of votes. The same Nigerians sell the votes, and the same Nigerians buy the vote. So I think based on that line, I think I don't trust our election. That is my take this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Massman. Critical question you raised there. Who are those buying and selling votes? It's us. To what extent do we accept responsibility for all of this? Okay. I would like to give out the numbers again. 0903 2229 797 or 0818 2222 205. 0808 2222 037. Okay, we have another caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, son.
All right, is that ID?
ID calling from.
Okay, ID, please go ahead.
Good morning, my brother.
Very you.
I hope you have a very wonderful night.
Yes, actually, I did.
On the issue, I think I agree with the last caller, the marksman. Who are those people that are recruiting the politicians? Who are the top they are recruiting? Vulnerable Nigerians. Who are the people that are helping them to guide their billboard everywhere, station everywhere, Nigeria? Why? Because you are vulnerable. Because you recognize poverty. Because they've been able to tell us in the face that, yes, we are super Nigerians. We are just ordinary Nigerians. That's why issues like this can come up from the presidential candidate of APC. Sorry, that doesn't trust Givers. Givers that was good for 3 scattered elections. There was no complaint about that. Now it's raising the issue. So it's been now that Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is now thinking of the fact that, okay, we don't have the technology, but after going through all the process, like you enunciated, the process of whether we will have 3G, 4G, 2G, or whatever G. Now we have to give us. So why are we Nigerians still complaining? It is our politics, our big guys in politics, our problem. Something that we know that will benefit all elections, the voting process before, during, and after. They will don't want to truncate because of their selfish interest. That is by the way it stands. Let me talk about the issue of NNPC, saying how we raise the food production from 7. So we should continue shouting, we should continue praising them. Why we were bringing out 2.something billion barrels, 2.1 million barrels per day, and they started dropping upward. People are not asking them questions, but now they were able to shout the whole thing up to like. Then they are not explaining to us. Why didn't they explain to us then? What happened to the time we are producing 2.1 million barrels per day? So when the thing now dropped to that abysmal level. So we should not be shouting and then they're okay, oh, they've done well. But they have a lot of questions to answer Nigeria.
Yeah.
Why are we having shortfall in the supply of the PLN to an average Nigerian?
And if it's not shortfalls, then it's a question of remittances. It's just always one thing or the other.
No, the only thing is this. Now they want Nigerians to know how they were able to increase the production rate, have you? But they've not been able to tell we Nigerians how the thing dropped from 2.1 million barrels per day down to this abysmal level. And even the minister, the substantive minister for petroleum resources, have not been able to tell Nigerians why perennial scarcity of PLS all over the whole country.
Yeah.
So the question now is this: who is fooling who? Are we so sincere with ourselves? Is our leaders, are they sincere to us about the figures they churn out every time? People supplied bad fuel. My vehicle was one of those vehicles that were destroyed. Nobody was punished. Nobody was called to order. Nobody was removed from the office. And since that time, the substantive minister of petroleum resources, who happened to be a president, PMD, refused to even have a common, maybe 2-3 minute address and give to Nigeria that, okay, I'm sorry as the minister for petroleum resources, where are we going? Nigeria is not a fair job. Nigeria is not an empire. It doesn't belong to a group of people. It belongs to all of us. Without me, Nigeria, there will be no presidency. But without presidency, Nigeria can survive. So that is exactly where I'm going. So now they wanted us to start shouting, okay, well, thank God they've increased the volume of what we produce every day to the international market. But it is very, very low. That 1 point something is not our quota. So who is fooling who?
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, ID, thank you very much. Yeah, I certainly feel your pain and frustration, particularly when it comes to the petrol scarcity, because it's something that we have been struggling on for far too long, especially those of us who are living right here in the Federal Capital Territory, because we've been going through these long queues. Essentially, we've been going through that since, what was it, January or February of this year? And even today, still the same challenge. Still the same. All right, well, you can call me. Lines are still open, 0903 2229 797 or 0818 2222 205. Or you could reach us on 0808 2222 037. What do you think about the NNPC ramping up oil production from about 800,000 barrels to 1.2? Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Steph.
Oh, good morning. Great to hear from you. Could you tell us your name, where you're calling from?
Okay, my name is Patrick.
Okay. Patrick, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Sterling, concerning NNPCL. I asked you a question the other day while speaking concerning the current fuel scarcity. I asked you, what is the main purpose of creating NNPC? That was the question I asked you. And I'm still asking you today again. When NNPC was established in Nigeria, what was the core aim of establishing NNPCL? Is it for importation of petroleum products?
Absolutely not.
Or is it for grilling crude oil and selling it? Is that why they were created? So these are questions I want answers to. But this is what I'm trying to. This is what I'm trying to. I think NNPCL, since they say that they are now private entity, I think they should move from importation of fuel products to even start owning their own refinery and selling fuel to Nigerians. Even if they cannot sell to African countries, they should be able to sell to Nigerians. Yes, the crude production have risen up again. That's good. But those people who are stealing from Nigeria since whatever years that was discovered, they discovered that the pipeline that they were using to steal our crude. So for how many years? So since how many years have they been stealing it? So we should get to the root of the matter very, very well, first of all, before we make sure that we punish those people and retrieve those money from them.
Yeah, I think Nigerians also want to know who they are.
We want to know who they are. Just the way you are analyzing it then, you have said it all. We want to know who they are. Who are these? Not this one that they caught with the equipment going to state. We want to know the big boys. Who are the big boys involved? For how long have they been doing this? And where we need to strip them of all the money they have made from this stealing they have stolen from the country. Also so our security agencies and even the president and the current minister of petroleum must take this very, very serious before they leave office in I think it's just almost 6 months now. So
right about that.
They must take it very, very serious. We want to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for joining me. Could you tell me your name, where you're calling from?
I'm Marina. I'm calling from Hawa.
Okay, Marina, please go ahead.
But I want to talk about the APC candidate. But what my advice to Nigeria is that we cannot afford to enter another one chance in 2023. So we need to be careful and shine our eye on whatever we are doing. Because what we are going through now, everybody knows it very well. So I think that we cannot afford to enter another chance. So we should be very, very careful in 2023. I know who we are voting for. What we need is someone that can be talking to us, media chat with him every month. Or if there is anything going wrong, you know, you will intervene on it. So we don't need somebody who is still in London hospital or this. So.
Yeah, Marina, in fact, it's interesting what you say, because I'm just looking back at the trend from 1999. We had what we call, I think it started out as The President Explains, which was, I think it was once a month, if I remember correctly. And then that metamorphosed into the presidential media chat. We don't seem to have a lot of those recently. I think the current president has done, what is it, about 3 or so throughout his 8 years?
No,
3 or 4?
But I've not witnessed such a thing from this current president, but I'm just advising Nigerians. We should look up to these 3 candidates, Labour Party, APC, PDP, and NPP, all this. We cannot afford to enter our chat. What will be there? If there is anything going on, we have, at the end of the boat, or we have to chat with the president, we'll call him, you know, if there is a water, not when somebody will cover, we know.
So Marina, you feel that we entered one chance?
We entered one.
Why? Okay, well, you are entitled to your opinion. Some would say governance is not as easy as we would like to make it, and that the challenges that would define your presidency probably, are actually quite difficult, and that there is a lag whenever you implement a policy. So, but of course, Marina is entitled to his opinion. The lines are still open. What do we actually think about this? He also raised another issue as to, whether or not we want our leaders to be more accessible. Is that really important to us? I'd like to know what you think on 0903 22 29 797 or 0818 22 22 205 or 0808 22 22 037. All right. Well, in the meantime, let me just get back. There is one more story that we do need to cover here. This is published by the Daily Trust. I think it's very important, especially for our young people out there. FCTA empowers 19,850 youths. Now, the details go this way. The Federal Capital Territory Administration has said that it has trained and empowered 19,850 indigent youths. That is youth who are indigenous to this area. So the FCTA Mandate Secretary for Social Development, Hadiza Kabir, disclosed this during the celebration of her 1 year in office, which was on Tuesday. And she said that her secretariat in the last 12 months organized moral rebranding programs in which youths from across 6 area councils of the FCT benefited. And Kabir stated that over 300 youths were trained and empowered in the following areas: fish farming and aquaculture within the period under review. Now, she also revealed that over 500,000 youths were trained in techno-entrepreneurship to establish small businesses in technology-based fields like solar and computer. And she also said that 13,100 youths were trained in leatherworks, satellite installation, welding, metal fabrication, and also in ICT, while another 5,500 youths were empowered and given starter packs to jumpstart their trained vocations. So she listed the success record in the last 1 year to include evacuation of 12,500 beggars from the street of Abuja while providing them feeding, psychosocial counseling, and repatriation to their respective states of origin to decongest the increasing number of shanties across Abuja. And she also added that the Secretariat has successfully evacuated 4,519 mentally retarded persons with drug-related cases, out of which 502 have successfully been treated and reunited with their loved ones. 273 victims of drug misuse and abuse have been rehabilitated through a psychological or psychosocial therapy, while 81 are currently undergoing rehabilitation at the FCT Vocational Center in Buari. This story interested me because it is right here in our locality. And I think we should speak more about what is happening in our locality. There is always a temptation when you are a media organization that is situated or located in the FCT to always talk about these big national issues. Perhaps because the president lives here, governance is done here, but we also forget that beyond being the seat of the presidency, FCT, Abuja, is also where we live. It's a local government of its own, or a state of its own, if you like. I have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, Mr. Stanley. Patrick calling back.
Okay, Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, nice one for the FCT. Where I have a problem is making it indigenous. Why not all Nigerians? But I will not for them. So I just want to encourage other states to embrace this kind of entrepreneurial empowerment to do the youth. At least this will reduce the abuse of drugs among the youth. You know, we shy away from when it comes to drugs abuse. We shy away. We try to shy away. So we cannot shy away from it because a lot of youth are into drugs, and the only way to pull them out of it is by empowering them. The more they have a purpose of living, the more they will stay off drugs. So I also other states, especially Nasarawa, Niger State, Kogi State, even Kaduna, down to the core north, we just embrace this kind of entrepreneurial empowerment to their youth. And I just really want to encourage those state governors and even the city. Next time it should be for all Nigerians. We should start making indigenous program always.
Yeah, you know, Patrick, you just raised an interesting question. When we're talking about national integration and all of that, but when we have these policies, and the FCT is not just the only one, you have what happens in states where if you're not indigent, then you're not entitled to any of these benefits, you're not entitled to training. So you start to wonder, because the big question is, are these things consistent with our constitution, which guarantees that if you live in a place, you should be able to enjoy all of the benefits in that place? So is it time for us to have that shift to say, no, let's not look at it? Yeah.
We cannot continue to do the same.
But on the flip side, I get where it's coming from, because there is a price to pay when your indigenous lands become the federal capital. There is a massive inflow, perhaps more so than in other states, a massive inflow of other people. And so what effectively happens is that the indigenous community become minorities in the larger scope. So maybe the affirmative action is a kind of compensation. So isn't that something you think that needs to be looked at?
Mr. Stalin, if we are speaking of compensation, I think all of us as Nigerians, we need compensation. All of us. Okay. So the truth statement that we should just integrate each other. So they should look for a way to put non-indigenous into the empowerment anytime they are having it. Okay. Non-indigenous should have no slots. Even indigenous, if they want to carry more of the indigenous people, no problem. They can carry non-indigenous. Let's say even just 50%. Because they are Nigerians too. That's what I'm trying to say, sir. All right. And we saw it. This is not the first time this kind of empowerment is taking place. The former governor of Kano State, Mr. Kapwankoso, he normally integrates everybody. He does not sideline anybody. All right. So he empower everybody. So
all right, Patrick,
he can do it.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. I've been keeping it on the line for some time. So hello. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, ID. Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Welcome back. Yes, I know that you've been itching to speak. Sorry for keeping you for a while.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. The issue of the program, very laudable, like Patrick, my brother, in theater, very laudable. But we have not been able to see the names and the pictures of those people that have benefited from this idea. Very laudable idea, but we've not been able to, come to Buhari area council, we've not been able to take things like that. Okay? Nothing that government like that. So they should not be giving up this after. This is
Hello? Hello?
It is 50,000 people benefited from this program.
Okay.
Let us have their names, their area, their area of specialization, whether it is bid making, whether it is all these other things. So the issue, Nigerians are wiser now, and that is why I blame some of our politicians. They are still thinking we are in that era of 2003, where election results will be announced even before the elections were concluded in some states. Now, another thing is this. Good idea, very laudable idea, but like my brother Patrick said, does it go all over the UK? Does it even include non-original owners of Abuja? Now, if you include non-residents of Abuja as in original owners of Abuja, then let us have the list local government by local government, area council by area council. They don't come around and brandish figures and sell them. That's number one. Number two, the issue, I don't know whether you read something about the issue of attacking Kubwa.
Yes, I spoke about that earlier.
So, the first line, how are we going to have 45 security, whatever we have in Abuja? Look at Kubwa. Very close to Guarimpa, very close to those things. Very close to seat of power. Some guys will just come around, brandish guns, shoot, kidnap, and take a lot of people hostages. Then where are we going? And but Mr. President, my able PMD, promised that he's going to hand over. It's like 6 months. I want to quote him. The next 6 months, he will hand over a secure Nigeria. A secure Nigeria to Nigeria. It's Nigeria secure. From the report you've been hearing, kidnapping in Zamfara, how many of them, how many people were kidnapped there? So you see a lot of things coming up. But you see, the point is, Mr. President is trying, the government is trying. But there are a lot of people that believe they are a government on their own. Because they are in a position of authority, they think that, yes, nobody can ask me because they are now looking at the possibility. They are looking at Mr. President as so Libra. But Mr. President, a president is not Libra. A president is just going through a phase in his life. That's why my president will tell an inspector general of police, then go to Benue, go and relocate to Benue. He will not go. So the only thing is, let Mrs. Madam Adiza audition names from area council to area council, let Nigerians see. Me, I don't believe in those 19 whatever thousand people. Let us have that. It's the money. They get their money for publicity. It is approved by the National Assembly for the National, for FCT, and for all the states. Let us know how many people from each of the area council benefited from this program. It's a very laudable program, but let us know who and who.
More information. Okay. All right.
So we need more information.
Yeah.
More information at least to keep us abreast and appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you very much for that intervention. Critical question. And sometimes it's also good for the media to do some verification. And when the media does verification or is trying to do so, the public officials should be open enough, because quite often it's a bit of a struggle. It's always, no, I need to refer to my superiors, or I need to do this and I do. But I think if we have a culture of transparency, as ID was saying, if we have a culture of transparency, then there would be no need for us to go through these long, expensive journey in order to seek that. And the media space also has its own challenge. So media houses cannot always afford to have these long verification. It's very expensive. So if the information can be made readily available, these are the people who've received this and these are their names, this is where they're located. Certainly, I think I get the point that that could be quite helpful. Okay, more things that we have to talk about before it is 9 a.m., including oil. Well, we've been talking about oil. We're going to go into deeper detail as to how we can prevent the theft of it and some of the corruption that's happening there. So don't go away. We will be right back.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for coming to the BBC. First of all, how are things going with Excellency, thank you very much for talking to the BBC. First of all, how are things going with you with the campaigning?
Things are going very well. I'm very...
Wake up. Reach out. Speak up. Speak out. You are the voice of a new generation. And this
is your station.
Talk Radio 93.7 Citizen FM.
Ụmụndem na ụmụnna m oge ndị Igbo na-abịaziri unu ụbọchị Satọde na ụbọchị Sọnde na weta aka n'elekere nke 4 oge ndị Igbo bụ oge anyị ji anọrị oge gị na-ekene ezepụ na-eji akpọrịkọta ụbụbọ kabarụ na-esonyela anyị nke a bụ nke anyị ụmụnne m daalụnụ.
We teach girls shame. Close your legs, cover yourself. We make them feel as though by being born female, they're already guilty of something.
So I think right now we have the chance to be heard, and that's why we're doing it. We're all doing it because we're asking to try and elicit change.
No woman should sit down and allow a man to speak about her reproductive rights.
But it is about opening spaces for other women and not to be seen as token, and that because I'm a woman, I'm only speaking about women at the table. No, I'm speaking about side of the table that is empty and that women have to be there. So I
want us to leave this world better than we found it. And how I choose to affect change is by speaking up, by being the first and by being the dominant.
Over 4 billion of the world's population are girls and women, also faced with challenges that affect our world and contributing solutions to them. Let's have conversations and get some answers to them through their eyes and voices. Tune in to Perspectives, where we discuss important issues ranging from climate change, politics, health, the economy, and lifestyle on Citizen FM 93.7 Abuja. Weekdays from midday. perspectives, conversations that matter.
Make we join our hearts to build a nation of our dream. Citizen FM. Citizen FM. Your problem is my problem and my joy is your joy. Citizen FM. Citizen FM. Make we join our hearts to build a nation of our dream. Citizen FM. Citizen FM. Yeah. Your problem is my problem and my joy is your joy. Epa!
Welcome back. This is Citizen FM 93.7, and you're listening to the Super Citizen at Sunrise. My name is Stanley Bentu. The time is 8:02. Today is the 8th of December, 2022. As I always ask, I hope that you've achieved for yourself everything that you set out to. If you haven't, then today is another day. That is the beauty that God gives us time. But we need to make the most of it. We shouldn't spend time, we should invest it. That means quality above quantity. But there are challenges that we have in life that sometimes hamper the quality of life that we can live. And part of that is how we expend, how we use our resources. You know, there's a lot of talk about Nigeria being natural resource rich. And yes, we are. But there is a paradox with a lot of countries that are rich in natural resources. A lot of these countries have populations that are very poor. Why is it that one country can have natural resources and is able to harness those resources to propel itself to wealth? And then you have other countries that, in spite of all their struggles, for all their best efforts, are simply not able to do that. Now, Nigeria happens to be one of those countries that are struggling. When you look at our oil and gas, and that is the sector, perhaps our easiest natural resource to trade. It's our biggest source of foreign income. And we seem to be struggling with that both in the upstream and in the downstream. And maybe even in the midstream, there are issues because we have challenges with our refining. And another thing of great interest, what about gas? Some people say that Nigeria is even more of a gas country than an oil country. Well, what have we done about that? Now, there are countries that have been able to mine their gas and have become the countries with the biggest GDPs per capita. For example, you only need to look to the World Cup, Qatar. It's a gas giant. And it has built all its wealth from that. As a matter of fact, invested a lot in developing technologies that would allow the country to not only mine the gas, but to export it. So I want to talk about that, what's happening in the upstream, midstream, downstream, and also this lingering petrol scarcity that we've been facing that just refuses to go away, even as we prepare for the holidays, as we prepare to welcome in another year. So to help me do that, I have someone who's worked extensively in the oil and gas industry. I have Ilyasu Gadu. Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, good morning, listeners. It's a very fine morning.
It is indeed a very fine morning. And the Harmattan winds have cooled down the temperature. I don't do very well in heat.
Yeah, well, I think many people also will say that.
Yeah, so we're thankful for that. So I've been thinking about oil and gas and some of the challenges that we've been having there. First of all, let's start with the information that we're getting from the NNPC that it's been able to, at least it's been able to ramp up our exports. We had been struggling, perhaps losing about 700,000 barrels of oil, but essentially the NNPC has been able to rein that in, and according to the information we have, NNPC is saying that we're doing, I think about we're able to ramp up to about 1.5, 1.6 million barrels per day, which is good news. But do you see that having a positive impact on our economy? Because sometimes these leaps in progress have not always translated to a healthier economy for Nigeria.
Well, I would join you in saying it's good news, and that you have ramped up our, production, figures in oil production. For quite some time now, we've not been able to do that. We've actually regressed to the point where, we lost our position at some point as the largest oil
as the
producer.
Seventh largest, as the largest in Africa.
Yeah. At some point, we even, we receded back to say about the third position behind, I think, Libya or Angola or something like that. But it's a worrying situation. But now that the NNPC has been able to, increase production, to bring it to the level that, that puts us, right there at the top of the oil producing league in Africa. It's something to behold. But then it's also not yet Uhuru, if I would say that, because, there are lots of things in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria that needs attention, that cannot just be, solved by just increasing the production, because there are quite other things that have not caught up with this. People are not so satisfied with what's happening in the oil and gas industry. So I think it's one thing to be happy about the ramping up of the production, as NNPC says, but quite another. If you look at the whole gamut of the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, there are quite other areas that don't give you cause for cheer. So we cannot just be celebrating one area of success when all along we have about maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 areas of
of concern.
Yeah, of concern, very serious concern. So yes, as they say, the more you see, the less you understand. So that's what really is happening here.
I'm curious about something when it comes to oil and gas. I think it is such an important industry for Nigeria.
And for the world.
And for the world. But so important that we cannot and do not talk about our budgets without talking about benchmarks, which to me is an indicator that we are heavily dependent on oil and gas still.
And dangerously too.
Dangerously, yes. And speaking of the dangers and the banana peels, I think the first one is the fact that we do not control the prices of oil. We have very little to no say, at least I'm made to understand that, over how much oil is going to be sold for at any given point in time. So the factors that determine our earnings, even if we were to be exporting maximally, are simply not in our hands.
Yeah, I quite agree with you. It's an assessment that is spot on, because we do not have the critical areas of the oil and gas production in our hands. I mean, the technical aspects are not in our hands. We have to enter into agreements with international oil companies for exploration activities. Most of the exploration activities we have international oil companies like Shell, Ajib, or Eni, if you want to call it, Total, Energy, the rest of them. They are the ones that are, the technical operators of the oil fields that we have. NNPC merely being just, supervisor in a way. So that means the technical aspects of oil production, and in some areas, other areas of it too, are not in our hands. So we don't know, for instance, the technical. We don't control the technical aspects of the production. Most of the production is not done by Nigerians. I mean, well, it's not done by Nigerian companies. It's done by
foreign companies.
By foreign companies who are into
multinational.
Who are into joint agreements, the JVs, if you call them, joint venture agreements with the NNPC. Of course, it looks deceptive if you look at it and say, okay, they have 40%, ownership, and we have 60%. But then the devil is in the fact that. The cash calls, involved in the oil production, has to be settled first before NNPC can declare that it has made some money out of that. So in the cash calls is where the devil is, and that's where the lack of technical expertise or the lack of technical ability to control the oil, exploration and production. Is because the joint venture companies can declare what they want. I mean, the technical partners can declare what they want to declare, and then it has to be settled before you share out. So that's one of the areas, and then the economics of it. I mean, that's where really the issue is, because once you produce the oil, you have to find the markets for it. You have to be able to determine where the margins and all that. So. It's quite something that we have not been able to control, and we do not control. As long as we do not control those things, or we do not have at least some measure of control, then we are out on a limb. You can, for instance, compare us with the likes of Petrobras of Brazil and Petronas of Malaysia. These are companies that are owned by these countries, and they're into production, exploration, and even the economics of the oil and gas in their countries, and that has made quite a lot of impact.
They own the technology, they own the oil companies, so they actually physically mine their own oil.
In fact, they are in competition with the international oil and gas companies. So they are where you have the shells, you also have the Petronas and the Pemex of Mexico, and the other independent non-IOCs. So we don't have NNPC still struggling to make its impact with the PIA. We had hoped that that they would at least begin to take the road to control, or at least take aspects of these areas in their stride. But you and I know that it's a long way to Tipperary, if I would say that.
It's certainly a long way, and I think a lot of Nigerians probably don't know the relationship between the NNPC, the IOCs, how prospecting is actually done. Maybe you could shed some light to us from the moment that there is a suspicion that these lands or these waters have oil. What happens next?
Yeah, well, the IOCs have come a long way, a very long way in this business, and long way, and they've developed the capacities, technically, and the economies of scale in oil exploration, oil prospecting, exploration, and the rest. So they know good, finds where they see it, because they have the ability to get in there. They know that this oil, they have everything.
Yeah.
So we are limited in that area, severely limited. We may have the good geologists, we may have the good scientists that could say, yes, this area can yield this much of oil, but to be able to get it out of the soil, that's the problem.
The IOCs have to come in.
Yeah, that's why they have to come in,
and they're doing it at a cost. They are essentially investing. We are not paying that cost. They are paying the cost.
Well, the IOCs are smart. They have to be, because they first of all, they will help you to. If you enter a joint venture with them, they will be able to tell you where the acres are, and then they will be able to tell you the capacities. What you have in there, how to get it out, and all that. And there are lots of contracts in there, because even if for instance, if you have a JV with maybe say XYZ company, now what the company will do is to say, okay, fine, we determine that there's oil here, but we want to extract it. We want to help you extract it under this joint venture. But the oil company itself, the IOC, does not actually engage in the production. What it does is to farm out, those aspects to companies that do it. For instance, Schlumberger is one of them, Baker and Hughes, Wilbros. I'm calling companies that are involved directly in the nitty-gritty of the extracting of the oil. Especially in a given acreage, in a given oil mining area, OMLs and all that. So those companies will go in there and do it. The IOC would engage those companies under contract to go in and do it, because they have the expertise, they have the tech. Yeah, so they will go in there and do it and charge the major company, the IOC, and then the IOC now will present its costs into the joint venture. So at the end of the day, the spread is okay. I've done this. And then the arrangement is okay under the NNPC agreement and the IOC. It's about 60% to NNPC, 40% to the IOC. Now the IOC would now determine the production costs.
The production cost, yes.
Now that's where the details are.
Yeah.
So
and the devil is in the details.
Yeah. So even a cup of tea drunk by an expatriate on that mission or on that exploration is charged. So there's a separate account, for that. So it could be they could scour the whole of Europe and get some good guys, at a cheap rate,
premium,
a cheap rate, and then this are I don't want to exactly. So that's what it is. So now that happens because you don't have the technical ability. If you have the technical ability, you can dispense with all of this and go in there and do your
exploration,
and then you can cut the cost yourself. But because you don't have the technical ability, you have to engage the IOC, and the IOC will tell you his terms.
So it's after the cost for the expertise, the costs for the exploration, the cost for the cup of teas that the executive, the hotel bills, everything. It's after all that is extracted that you now look at, okay, this is what the profit is, and then
this is what is available. It's not profit.
This is what is
available.
Okay, this is what is available. So then you take 60%, I take 40%.
Yeah, but then along the line,
that doesn't sound like a very good deal. Just as you said, if we are not doing the exploring, if we're not investing in the technology, then we are already at a disadvantage even before a single drop of oil has left the ground.
That's why NNPC is always behind in cash calls with the IOCs, because at the end of the day, the IOCs could do some creative accounting and then decide, and then at the end of the day, yes, it looks as if with 40% they are the junior partner, but I bet you they are not. They are not, because
especially when there's a
and then there are also other things too that don't even come into play. I mean, they don't into public play.
What are those?
For instance, they can declare whatever they want to declare and tell you, well, okay, out of this well we'll be able to get maybe 600 million barrels. But you and I know perhaps maybe it's much more than that.
It's much more than that.
But then...
So is there, are you saying that we don't have a proper accounting system for it? Because I know that the technology exists where you have the taps or the gauges to know if there is any lower pressure, higher pressure. During the saga of the oil theft, we had so many experts who were shedding more light on the technologies that exist that allow you to know how much exactly is being mined out.
Yeah, it's true. You're quite right on that. But then the one who owns the technology, he knows how to manipulate the figures. And at the end of the day,
paying the piper, picking the tune.
Exactly. At the end of the day, there are also other ways by which you could, cook the books. So at the end of the day, as they say, let me just use this term: a fool and your money are soon parted. That's what happens.
So we're looking at countries, and you mentioned some of them, Brazil. I
Mexico.
also know, I mentioned Qatar, who also, they've invested in their own technology. Mexico has invested. Why? What about Nigeria? Why didn't we invest in this capacity, especially right from the beginning?
Yeah, we actually were one of the, earliest countries to have, we hit the, the oil well in 1958 or thereabouts.
57, I think.
Yeah, 57, 58, in thereabouts in Bayelsa, in
Oloibiri.
Exactly, and I've been there, I've been to that.
You've been to ground zero.
Yeah, so, we've had a long period, of oil, activities in Nigeria, so to speak. And we should have by now developed the ability and capability to be able to say certain aspects of our oil and gas are in our control. We may not be able to, compete majorly with the IOCs in certain areas, but in certain areas, definitely by now, we should be able to say, look, hey, this is under our control, and we can at least, minimize costs. We can do some kind of economies of scale on it. But it hasn't happened. And, it's the usual Nigerian thing. And, in fact, if we had been doing that, we wouldn't have had the need. We would have passed we would have had something of the Petroleum Industry Act long time ago. But you can imagine that it's now, I think this year or thereabouts, that we were able to pass the Petroleum Industry Act, which actually was supposed to, aspects of it was supposed to have, been passed a long time ago, so that it could, give us the ability to control our oil and gas, to be able to say some of these things that, are happening perennially, at least they don't happen in terms of, oil, fuel shortage, and things like that, because we don't have, right now we don't have even a functional refinery, we don't have a functional refinery. Refining ability is very, very low. And a number of things, really, compared to some of our peers, like Malaysia, like Egypt, like even some of this, Indonesia, for instance, and even Qatar, as you mentioned, these are and then Saudi Arabia, Aramco. These are countries that have been able to, at least to a very large extent, been able to control aspects of their economy, even though the presence, you cannot wish the presence of the IOCs. They are very important. They are they're always there. But there are certain countries that have been able to at least, match them in certain areas of the oil and gas industry.
Well, we have to take a break shortly, but maybe very quickly before you do that, what steps do we need to take if we're going to maybe take control of our oil production a little bit more?
Honestly speaking, the first thing to do is to stop corruption in the oil and gas industry.
This is the biggest problem.
Yes, that's the cankerworm, because, the oil and gas, the IOCs cannot do what they're doing to us if we really can rein in corruption in the oil and gas industry. And I'm talking as a Nigerian. I'm talking with my heart now, bleeding about what's happening there. If we can stop corruption and have a bit of feeling for the country and say, look, we need to be able to stand some of these things, then perhaps we can begin to find the way to getting better, better, what do you call it now, for what we have here as God-given wealth, but then, that's the first thing. Then, of course, other things will follow from there, because if you don't, tame it to the barest minimum, whatever you do to help, bring about, a beneficial oil and gas industry, it will not work.
All right. Well, we will stay on that and also talk about Nigeria being even more of a gas country than an oil country. How much do we know about that? Don't go away. We will be right back.
It has just begun.
Check it out.
Please scan your dial. Now.
You found it.
You found it.
Citizen 93.7 FM. Abuja. We are the best.
To 93.7 Citizen FM. Based in Nigeria's capital. Your number one radio station.
Welcome back. This is Citizen FM 93.7, and you are listening to the Super Citizen at Sunrise. The time is 8:26, and, we've been looking at Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Everything from upstream, midstream to downstream. Why are we always several steps behind? I have here with me someone who has vast experience in the oil and gas industry, Mr. Ilyasu Gadu. And we've been talking about the oil industry. Right before we went to break, we were told that for us to make that change, we need to take more control of our oil, and we cannot do that unless we have an investment, a heavy investment made in our technology to explore. And we can't do that unless we eliminate the corruption that has always prevented us from doing so. So I was thinking about corruption and the challenges that we have here. As a matter of fact, I think that at this point, we can't even call it corruption anymore. It's industrial scale corruption. What was it that was said about poverty? Multidimensional poverty. This is multidimensional corruption, because we have it on every level. Even when it comes to, there have been allegations of collusion, even with the security agents who are there, who are supposed to be providing this. So if the temptation is so great, if it has become so much of a racket, where do you even begin? Where do you even start? Because it seems as if it will overwhelm you. You stick one finger in and you'll be sucked in. It's almost like a black hole.
Yeah, you're right. It's something that's given many people cause for worry, because, we are more or less like lagging behind. I mean, not more or less, we are lagging behind. Let's face it. We're lagging behind in oil and gas. And we were one of the earliest, in the developing world, we are one of the earliest, starters. But right now we are stuck. We have not had the kind of progress that we should have, relative to,
to where we started.
To where we started. And those that came from behind have gone ahead of us. And we don't even seem to understand that, it's injurious to our economy, injurious to our future, because more and more oil finds are being made around the world. And in fact, oil itself is getting, there's a lot of research now, in some years to come, oil will cease to be, the energy source of choice.
So it's not looking good.
It's not looking
on any
good for
level.
us. So we need to be able to, we need to be able to sit down, have a long, deep, hard, look at ourselves and say, look, hey, what are we doing? This is a God-given resource. It's given to us so that we could do something.
And we don't have a lot of years to do that, because according to what I read, the target is, I think, somewhere around 2050, which gives us less than 30 years to get it right. If we don't do that.
It's just like tomorrow.
So of course, some people will say we're probably better off without the oil anyway. So
no, I think that is a defeatist. It's a defeatist attitude, and you have to be thankful for what God has given you.
Yeah.
I mean, it has helped quite a lot. I wouldn't say it hasn't helped Nigeria. It has helped quite a lot. It's just that we have not been able to direct it in a manner that would help us much more than it's helping us now. In some ways.
Now, before we move to the midstream, let's just talk about the gas, because I've heard that we have a lot more even gas reserves than oil. But then again, it's a similar problem that we haven't. I think pretty much now it's flaring. That's what's going on.
Yeah, well, you're quite right. In fact, that statement has gotten to more of a cliche now, that we have much more gas than oil. And it's, in fact, it used to be said that, it says that our oil, it's a drop
compared to our
in
gas
a sea
reserves.
of gas.
Yeah. And okay, well, I think two opportunities are probably being missed here. Number one is when it comes to foreign income, and we've been talking about, the value of the naira and, how much is chasing the dollar and all that. But when you look at what happens or what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, you can't help but wonder about the missed opportunities, because with Russia actually shutting down and trying to deny the Western world its gas supply or gas reserves, it means that a gap has been created, and Nigeria could have stepped in to fill that gap.
Yeah, and it's that's the tragedy of it all, because we have vast gas reserves. In fact, among the top 10 in the world. And all this while, we've been flaring this gas. And with the only project that we've been able to, that has been able to come on stream to at least be able to tap this vast resource was the Nigerian liquefied natural gas. And even at that, it took about 30 years of planning to get to, fruition. Because after some time, there'll be the economics of it would not, doesn't sit well with the, with investors and, a lot of things until God bless him, whatever you say about him, General Abuja came and gave the approval, gave the approval for the final investment decision to be taken. Because before then, it's been on a gestation period for about 30 years or thereabouts. After some investors will come, look at the economics, look at the market, look at the technology, look at what, and say, no, we can't be involved. Look at even the local issues. Say, no, we can't be involved here. We prefer to, flare the gas, pay the penalties. But first of all, because the gas, market is such that you need to have a market before you even embark on it. You don't just build a refinery or like the crude oil and then hope that somebody will come and, take the crude oil on the spot market or something like that. In the gas, you need to have dedicated buyers. You need to tie them up to contracts over 20, 22 years so that with that, you are able to go and get the investments to be able to put, to put together all the necessary things so that you can now begin to build a plant and begin to, build the pipelines that will convey the gas from the gas fields.
I would like to hear from you that because I don't think that a lot of people are clear as to how this happens and how different gas is from oil. The easy option, of course, is to flare it, which is largely what we do.
Yeah, because
but if we decide that we need to stop flaring, what are the things that we need to do? What are the industries we need to set up? And how is gas even transferred from the miner to the user?
Yeah, well, it's a complicated system, but if you understand it, you see how in the complication, you see how easy it is, because first of all, most of the gas that is flared is what is called the associated gas. The associated gas is the gas that comes along with crude oil in the process of production. So, because you need the crude oil much more than the gas, you just flare it. As simple as that, because you don't need the gas. It's not that you don't need it, but the economics of it, which is to find the markets, to find the buyers, it's not there. You don't want to invest in regasifying it because the economics do not add up. So you prefer to flare and pay penalties than, and then take the crude. That's what happens. Most of the flares you see are from the associated gas fields. So now Nigeria came with the idea that, look, hey, this is a lot of money being flared, a lot of energy that is going that should be used. So we need to be able to do something out of it. But then, because we lacked the technology, we couldn't develop the capacity to be able to, to harness the gas that is being flared. So, and then the oil and gas companies, international oil and gas companies, yes, we could approach them, but if also the economics of it does not, add up, they just say, okay, fine, we want to...
Let's just burn it.
Let's just burn it, we pay whatever cost that you apply. So that's what has been happening. But with the coming of the Nigerian liquefied natural gas, part of that flaring was stopped. Then, of course, some of the fields where the gas were flared, it enabled the international oil companies to now, install or establish gas plants that would now take in the associated gas and then, process it and send it through dedicated pipelines to the plant in Bonny Island, where it goes through some more further processing to be able to reduce it to minus 160 degrees,
which is the temperature,
which is the ambient temperature that could
gas.
go into ships that would take it to the markets, to dedicated markets.
So you can't just export it like that. You have to reduce it to process it, reduce it to minus
to ambient, because it's just like when you have a quantity of water and then you need to be able to take it to some place. Now you need to be able to the process of the LNG in the LNG plants is to reduce it to a form of in a cube form. So all that volume, comes into a form that is that you are able to now pack it, into the ships. That's why we have the NLNG plant in Bonny, and then we had also part of the plan was to have also further, LNG plants in Brass, OK, and other areas, so as to bring all those flares into, the plant where it's processed and sent abroad to markets. But the problem is that we also need to, out of that process, come certain byproducts like LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, and condensate. Also, these are for exports too.
The LPG, that is the kind of gas that can be used in vehicles?
Yes, exactly.
When you convert your engine to a gas.
But you need the technology. That's the problem. That's the word again. You need the technology, because most of what we sell abroad now, what we sell in the NLNG goes abroad to fire. To help the utilities of these countries.
That's electricity, and other forms of energy.
So, but we need it here. That's the incongruity of it all. This is the product that we are selling to other countries.
Yeah, because heaven knows we need electricity.
we need it, and we need it also for domestic uses in terms of the oil and the gas at home. But we can't have it because we don't have the technology. As I speak to you, we don't even have the receiving plants in Nigeria, receiving terminals in Nigeria, where when we process and produce LPG, we can actually take it there, where off-takers, would come and take up this stuff and send it to the Nigerian Nigerian market. We don't even have the pipelines dedicated, because we have to invest in the technology of this, and we don't have it at the moment, and we have not been able to have it. And that is one of the problems why we've not been able to have the full benefits of our natural resources. This calls for a lot of investment, a hell of a lot of investments. But then, are we doing that? The only other oil and LNG plant we have is the Bonny plant. And even at that, it's beset by a lot of problems. Gas supply system. The market, the gas supply. Where the gas is supplied, there's been a lot of local problems that disrupt the flow of gas into the plant in Bonny. So even if we have a functioning plant, we are not able to take advantage of what's happening in Europe, because the gas supply, issue has not been resolved. Some of these companies that supply the gas to the Bonny plant have called off supply because they have what they call the force majeure issue, where some of the pipes, where some of the pipelines have been sabotaged, where some of the production facilities at the gas plants that supply gas to the plant in Bonny have been disrupted. So at the end of the day, we are not able to take full benefits of the benefits that should come from the Nigeria liquefied natural gas, and being able to to exploit what's happening in Ukraine and other places. Otherwise, by now, would have been smiling to the bank.
Yeah, it's. I feel a little bit frustrated at the moment, I will be honest about my emotions, because the seeds of greatness is in this country. You see it. You actually see the advantage. Of course, there are arguments that can be made. There are arguments that can be made about whether or not there's some sort of conspiracy by the Western world to prevent us from developing. But at the end of the day, it's all on us.
You're right.
Because I think that when a people are determined to succeed, nothing stops them. We've seen what China has done. We've seen what Singapore has done. We've seen what the people of the UAE have done. We've even seen Libya and what Libya has done. And in spite of the fact that you had a Muammar Gaddafi, and you can argue about how much the West did not like him, the country has remained quite resilient. We know that they still have issues, but by and large, they have been able to overcome a lot of these problems. So we can do it. We obviously can do it. So somehow, it's a question of what happens within the borders of this country.
Can tell you, I can give you an anecdote of what you've just said. It used to be said that 7 sisters, 7 companies control the entire oil and gas business in the whole world. And those 7 companies, you could count them in your fingers. But there are some players who came and said, no, we want to be part of it. You can't carve this into yourselves.
We need another chair at the table.
So a certain company decided that, look, we have the technology, we have the means by which we are being able to control the world. So we are going to go in there. We are going to use the technology and use the economics, take advantage of technology and the economics of the oil and gas. And they went in there. And that company is Eni of Italy. They were not part of the original Seven Sisters, but they had a very enterprising, very far-sighted, smart guy called Enrico Mattei. Enrico Mattei was the founder of the AGIP, Eni, Italian oil and gas system. And he went and started to undercut the Seven Sisters, going around the world to make deals under the table, because it's a cutthroat, to be candid, it's a cutthroat business. So he went in using the technology that they have developed within their country in Italy and going to those fields and going to those areas that have not been discovered, oil areas, and they were able to, cut deals that, was favorable to them and threatening, the control by the IOCs. At the time, the Seven Sisters, who, by the way, were all linked up to one person, the Rockefeller.
The Rockefellers.
Yeah, because
essentially they were birthed from the Rockefeller company.
So he now, said, look, we are going to go in, and then some other, independent oil companies too started, following his footsteps. Before you knew it, there was a lot of challenge, and then of course they realized they had to, because at the time, the 7 companies were just going around the world, dictating terms. To oil finds in other parts of the world. So Enrico Mattei now formed another, counter to that, and he was going around the world, and his other, independent, companies, going around trying to get better deals, and then disrupting the entire oil, disrupting the control of these 7 companies. We could do that. Aramco came in, Pemex is there, Petronas is there, Petrobras is there, even Qatar and the rest. So, but you have to be able to be focused. You have to be able to develop the capacity to be able to be a player, which at the moment the PIA is supposed to give us. But you and I know that the perennial problem of Nigeria will rear its ugly head, and at the end of the day, we're going to get back to square one. By now, with the Petroleum Industry Act, we should have, we should have seen the sprouts of things happening in the oil and gas industry, but we're still where we are. Just this morning, so as I was coming here, long queues. In fact, now, we still have those perennial problems.
Yeah, we still have that, which I think at this point we can talk about, even though I think we have been talking about that, the midstream. When it comes to midstream, let's start with midstream gas. You mentioned one of those, the petroleum or the petroleum gas, something that we need to power our vehicles, and maybe our cars can run on gas and then instead of importing petrol. But before we do that, I think we have a call coming in. Let me listen to this caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Stanley, and good morning, Mr. Yazu. This is Simon Adekupo.
Okay, Phil, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Phil, you're close to a radio set. Could you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I can hear an echo. No, please go ahead then.
Okay. Okay, I will step out of where I am, so I'm not close to the radio. I don't know why it is happening now. Let's face it. I followed the analysis of Mr. Yazu, largely correct. But let me make an input here. The problem in the sector, by the way, I have been involved in documenting the sector since 2018. So I am very much aware of what is going on in the sector. This is my take. It is not an economic problem. It's not a problem of technology. It's not a problem of ownership, because even the oil majors, Nigeria has share in each of the oil majors. I hope we know that. Now, it is largely a social problem. Why do I say that? Because certain individuals in this country have made up their mind that the sector should not work. It must not work. Why? Because it serves their purpose. So even if we begin to have a Petrobras or Aramco in Nigeria, I do not think sincerely that it will change the dynamics of what is happening to the oil sector in Nigeria. It will not. Now, let me give you an example here. If a woman goes to Benue State to go and buy yam to sell in Abuja, no matter how illiterate that woman is, she knows how many tubers of yam she's picking up from Benue State. Up till this moment, between NNPC, IPMAN, and all the players in the sector, we have not been able to establish how much we are consuming. I hope you know that the independent marketers are now contesting the figures coming from NNPC. I hope you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now that's for one. Number two, let me give you another example. NNPC is saying that their depots have been vandalized. Mr. Stanley, do you know what an oil depot is? A petrol depot? Do you know what it looks like? The question I've asked myself is, the same people who are vandalizing NNPC depots, how come they are not vandalizing the private depots?
Mm.
And
Good
NNPC
question. Now, Phil, could you either hang on the line or call us back? Either way, if you can hang on, please, we would appreciate that, because we've just been joined by the Vice President of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Abubakar Megandi. Hello, good morning, Mr. Vice President.
Unfortunately, I'm leaving right
morning.
now.
All right, great to hear from you. Thank you for finding the time to join us.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I will just go straight to my first question. Christmas is around the corner, and as I was driving out of my home this morning, the queues were still there, and we just wanted to get an update as to, what's the current situation? Is there any hope that these queues will disappear before the end of the year?
Well, in fact, I cannot say there is hope or there is no hope, because we independent petroleum marketers, we depend on the way we receive the product from the private depot and NNPC. So if our trucks cannot be able to load, definitely there is no way we can be able to bring the product and sell in the filling station. So right now, the way you have been seeing queue inside the town is the same thing applied to us. All our trucks are queuing some 3 weeks, 2 weeks without loading.
And we've been getting information that NNPC is using some private tank farms, and these tank farms are basically almost middlemen now, and adding additional costs to the final landing cost at the stations. Could you throw more light on that?
Yes, definitely. That is what is really happening, because we independent petroleum marketers, we highly depend on these private depot owners. And these private depot owners, if they discharge their product, they sell it at any rate. That is, at present now, in Warri and Lagos, they are selling this product at the rate of 235 naira per liter. But notwithstanding, our major problem, even to get that 235 naira per liter, is a problem, because we load our money inside their account, but up to now, they cannot be able to load us for almost 2 to 3 weeks.
So what has happened? Isn't the NNPC supposed to have its own tank farms?
No, what is there? The normal thing that they have been doing before, they used to give we independent petroleum marketers our allocation direct. But now they are not doing that. They only give private depot owners product. Then they tell us to go there and buy.
And so this is also part of the problem. So what would you say? Because we have gotten information also that the current price, the price cap that is that has been placed by the regulators is no longer feasible.
Well, that is what they are saying. But what we are demanding, since NNPC is the sole importer of this petroleum product, let them give Moman and independent petroleum marketers their volume. So immediately when we get our volume, even if we are going to add a small margin, it will be cheaper to us than to tell us to go and buy through third party. It's a serious problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. I know you're very busy, so we will let you go at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. We're grateful. That is Abubakar Megandi, the Vice President of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association. I think I got a sinking feeling the moment he said, I can't tell you that there will be an end to this at any point in time, but I'm still with Mr. Ilyasu Gadu. Maybe you can respond to some of that and also talk a bit about the downstream sector and the challenges that we're having.
Well, it's something we've been saying in this country almost to the point of ad nauseum, that, to the point that some people are talking about the oil and gas industry in Nigeria being a curse, where in other countries it's been a blessing, and that, as we all know, is down to our attitude, as the other caller has said, and
as
also
Phil was saying.
And then if we want to drill down to what really is the problem, it's about corruption, because you could see that we have the product, we have it in abundance. It's not shortage of the product, but it's because the point from which you take it out to the point in which the consumer uses it, in between that point, it's where you have all kinds of things. And that's why we're happy. You had the president of the independent market saying, enumerating problems of getting the stuff,
the product,
the product, and then also affecting how it gets to the consumer down there, people like you and me. So at the end of the day, a lot of countries, it's back to the issue of economics, back to the issue of the technical aspect.
And I see the challenge as twofold. Yes, we're looking forward to the Dangote refinery. In my view, not because of price, because I don't think the price will get that much better. But one, maybe it eliminates these logistical problems. The question of, these private depots and all of that. And two, maybe it saves the government a lot of money when it comes to the amount of money being spent on subsidies and importation. And I think the third one is, if we don't have to import so much, then there won't be so much naira chasing the dollar, or we won't have to keep dipping into our reserves. So I think that, for me, that would be the biggest gift that the Dangote refinery would probably give us.
I think let me with regard to the Dangote refinery, I would be optimistic, but at the same time be cautious. Because we've seen initiatives like that in this country, not just in the oil sector, but in other sectors. And at first, it gives us cause to be happy, to be optimistic, and then along the line, the in-betweeners of the whole thing, makes you feel, the reality of it, as in the Nigerian context, makes you, feel pessimistic. Because at the end of the day, yes, we have a huge refinery coming on stream with the Dangote refinery, and that should be able to at least address some of the issues. But then, the devil is in the details. How do you get it to the consumer at a very affordable rate? And that is where intervention mechanisms would be possible. If you now leave it to the market forces, some people, I can tell you, some people would either sabotage the production, where he gets his crude from the sources, pipelines. Or they will also sabotage the process where it gets to they're very channels. For instance, I'll give you an example. NLNG produces the bulk of the LPG in this country, and the issue is how to get it to the consumer. And because we do not have the receiving terminals where NLNG would have to supply, and then from there pipelines will be connected to receiving terminals across the country, we are not able to get it, and it's very expensive. And even LNG even intervene in the process by evacuating the product from its plant to Atlas Cove in Lagos. But at the same time, again, that's the only, at some point, it was the only jetty that was receiving petroleum, kerosene, and all that. So the off-takers would have to wait at the sea before these other people have finished discharging. So that's it. And by the time it gets to Atlas Cove jetty, the cost rises, because the off-taker would have to pay demurrage services, the demurrage fees and all that. And by the time it gets to the Atlas Cove jetty, for it to get to the consumer in Lagos, Port Harcourt, Enugu, and the rest of them, So you all these things are there.
All these things are there. Yeah. Well, I would love to go on, but our time is far spent. I would just like to really thank you very much, Ilyas Ugadu, for it's been a very, very enlightening time spent with you.
Thank you very much. I hope I've been able to, with my little modest knowledge of the sector, at least enlighten our people. Let's be let's be patriotic for once, at least, so that we can take full advantage of this God-given resource for us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Now, you've heard it all. It's all about infrastructure. How much investment are we going to do and make into infrastructure? And this is not just about the infrastructure we consume, but the infrastructure to make our oil and gas sector profitable and enjoyable to all Nigerians. I would like to thank everyone who made this show a success. Thanks to my producer, Fred. Thanks to our engineer, Joseph Michelia. Thank you to every single caller who participated in this program, and also thank you to everyone who listened to it. Well, I wish everyone a wonderful day, but stick around because Sunny Side of Sports is next, and that would be followed by Inside.